It was a cold November evening in 2017 when everything changed for me forever. I lived in a small suburban neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 28 years old at the time, working as a nurse at the local hospital. The only companion I had was my loyal German shepherd, Max, who had been with me since he was just a puppy. That particular night started like any other ordinary evening. I remember glancing at the clock as I prepared dinner. It was precisely 8:47 p.m. The rain had been falling steadily all day, creating that distinct sound of water hitting the roof that always made my small house feel cozier. Max was lying by the fireplace, his ears occasionally twitching at the sound of passing cars or distant thunder. At around 9:15 p.m., I decided to take Max out for his last walk of the day. The streetlights cast long shadows across the wet pavement, and the air carried that crisp autumn scent mixed with the earthy smell of fallen leaves. As we walked down Maple Street, I noticed how unusually quiet it was. No children playing, no neighbors chatting on their porches, just the rhythmic sound of Max's paws splashing through puddles. We were about halfway through our usual route when Max suddenly stopped dead in his tracks near the old Johnson property. The house had been abandoned for years, its windows boarded up and paint peeling away. His hackles rose instantly, and a low growl escaped his throat, something I had never heard from him before. "Come on, boy," I said softly, tugging gently at his leash, but he wouldn't budge. Just as I was about to pull harder, I caught a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye. Something, or someone, darted between the trees at the edge of the property. My heart skipped a beat as I squinted into the darkness, trying to make out any details. The streetlight nearby flickered ominously, casting strange shadows that danced across the overgrown yard. Max's behavior grew more agitated by the second. He began barking furiously, straining against his leash with such force that I almost lost my grip. "Shoo, Max, it's okay," I whispered, though my own voice trembled slightly. I glanced around, suddenly aware of how isolated we were. Most of the houses on this street were dark, their occupants either asleep or away for the evening. As I tried to calm Max down, I felt an inexplicable chill run down my spine. It wasn't just the cold night air. There was something else, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I scanned the area again. That's when I noticed it, a faint reflection in one of the broken windows of the Johnson house. At first, I thought it might be the moonlight catching the glass, but then it moved. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the window. There was definitely someone inside, watching us. I couldn't make out any features, just the vague outline of a figure standing perfectly still. Max's barking intensified, and I decided right then that it was time to leave. "Let's go home, boy," I said firmly, turning back the way we came. But as we started walking, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. Every few steps, I would glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone emerging from the shadows. Max continued to growl, his body tense and ready to spring into action. The usually comforting sound of his presence now felt like a warning siren. When we reached the intersection of Maple and Elm Streets, about 2 blocks from my house, Max suddenly lunged forward with such force that he pulled the leash from my hand. He took off running back the way we came, his powerful legs propelling him through the rain-soaked streets. "Max!" I called after him, panic rising in my chest. Without hesitation, I ran after him, my sneakers splashing through puddles as I desperately tried to keep up. I found him standing in front of my house, barking wildly at something in the bushes near my front porch. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears as I approached cautiously. "Max, what is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Then I saw it, a dark shape moving among the shrubbery. It wasn't an animal. It was too large, too deliberate in its movements. Before I could react, Max launched himself at the bushes with a ferocity I'd never seen before. There was a muffled grunt, followed by the sound of someone crashing through the undergrowth. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers shaking as I dialed 911. "Hello, police? There's someone in my yard," I managed to say, my eyes fixed on the spot where Max had disappeared into the darkness. The dispatcher assured me that officers were on their way, but I knew it would take them at least 10 minutes to arrive. Max reappeared moments later, his teeth bared and a piece of black fabric clutched in his jaws. He positioned himself between me and the bushes, every muscle in his body coiled tight like a spring. The rain had picked up now, drumming against the pavement and making it harder to hear anything beyond Max's warning growls. Then I saw it, a figure stepping out from behind my neighbor's garage, about 30 feet away. They were dressed entirely in black, with a hood pulled up over their head. What struck me most was how they moved. Not like someone trying to hide, but rather like someone who didn't care if they were seen anymore. Their face was completely obscured, but I could feel their gaze boring into me even through the darkness. "Stay back," I shouted, holding my phone up like some kind of weapon. To my surprise, the figure actually paused, tilting their heads slightly as if considering their next move. Max's growling reached a fever pitch, and I swear I saw the intruder take a step backward. But then something unexpected happened. They raised their hand, revealing what looked like a long, metallic object. In that moment, I realized with chilling clarity that this wasn't just some random prowler. This person had come here with intent, and they weren't going to be deterred by a dog or a frightened woman with a cell phone. My mind raced as I tried to think of what to do next. Should I retreat into the house? But what if they followed me inside? Suddenly, Max did something extraordinary. He began circling me, creating a protective barrier while maintaining eye contact with the intruder. It was as if he understood exactly what was happening and had taken it upon himself to protect me. The figure seemed momentarily confused by his behavior, shifting their weight from one foot to the other. I could hear distant sirens now, growing louder with each passing second. The intruder must have heard them too, because they suddenly turned and sprinted toward the alley behind my house. Max immediately gave chase, but I called him back, knowing it was too dangerous to pursue them further. Instead, I stayed where I was, my phone trained on the direction they had fled, until the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the street. When the officers arrived, they conducted a thorough search of the area, but found no trace of the intruder. However, they did discover several sets of fresh footprints leading away from my house and into the woods behind the neighborhood. More disturbingly, they found a collection of discarded items in the bushes where Max had first attacked: gloves, a mask, and what appeared to be a hunting knife. Detective Martinez, who led the investigation, explained that my neighborhood had experienced a series of break-ins over the past few months. In each case, the perpetrator had managed to evade capture by slipping through police perimeters just like they had tonight. The victims had all reported feeling watched in the days leading up to the incidents, much like I had at the Johnson property. What puzzled the detectives most was the piece of fabric Max had retrieved. Laboratory analysis revealed it to be part of a specialized tactical suit commonly used by military personnel. No fingerprints were found on it, nor on any of the other items discovered in my yard. Whoever this person was, they had gone to great lengths to cover their tracks. In the weeks that followed, I became increasingly paranoid. I installed security cameras, motion detectors, and reinforced all the doors and windows in my house. Max never returned to his old self either. He remained constantly alert, patrolling the perimeter of our property as if expecting another attack at any moment. We both slept fitfully, haunted by memories of that night. The police eventually connected my case to similar incidents across 3 different states. Each victim described encountering someone wearing identical gear and exhibiting the same calculated behavior. Some claim to have seen glimpses of their attacker's face during brief moments when their mask shifted, enough to know it was a man, but not enough to identify him. Despite extensive investigations and numerous leads, the identity of my would-be attacker remains unknown. The FBI classified the case as part of a larger pattern of home invasion attempts targeting single women living alone in suburban areas. What set my experience apart was Max's intervention. According to the authorities, I was the only intended victim who hadn't been harmed. Looking back, I realize how close I came to becoming another statistic. If Max hadn't sensed the danger when he did, if he hadn't reacted with such instinctive courage, things might have ended very differently. The police told me that based on the evidence collected from my yard, the intruder had likely been planning to break into my house while I slept. To this day, I can't walk past the old Johnson property without feeling a shiver run down my spine. The house has since been demolished, but sometimes late at night, I still catch myself staring out my window at the empty lot where it once stood. Max passed away peacefully last year, but not a day goes by that I don't credit him with saving my life. There are nights when I wake up suddenly, convinced I hear footsteps outside my window or see a shadow moving across my lawn. The rational part of my brain knows it's probably just a trick of the light or the wind rustling through the trees. But deep down, I can't help wondering if that mysterious figure is still out there, watching and waiting for another opportunity. Sometimes, when I'm alone in my house during a storm, I find myself thinking about that night in vivid detail. The way Max's growl had sounded different from any other time, the unnatural stillness of the neighborhood, the feeling of being watched before I even knew someone was there. These memories serve as constant reminders of how quickly ordinary evenings can turn into life-altering experiences. The local police department continues to investigate similar cases, but leads have grown scarce over time. Occasionally, I'll receive updates from Detective Martinez, who has become somewhat of a friend through this ordeal. She assures me that they haven't given up, that cases like mine remain active until solved. Yet part of me wonders if some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. Living through that experience has changed me in ways I'm still discovering. I've developed a heightened awareness of my surroundings, noticing details I might have previously overlooked. The relationship between humans and their pets takes on new meaning when you've witnessed firsthand how intuition transcends species boundaries. And perhaps most significantly, I've learned to trust those gut feelings that tell you something isn't right, even when you can't explain why. I often think about what might have happened if Max hadn't been with me that night. Would I have noticed the figure watching us from the abandoned house? Would I have recognized the danger in time to escape? These questions haunt me, serving as both a source of anxiety and gratitude, because despite everything, I survived, thanks to the unwavering loyalty and courage of my 4-legged guardian. Sometimes, when I'm out walking in the neighborhood, people will stop me to ask about Max. Word of his heroism spread throughout the community, and he became something of a local legend. Parents would point him out to their children as an example of bravery, while others would share their own stories of close calls or mysterious encounters. Through these interactions, I've come to understand that experiences like mine, while terrifying, can also bring communities closer together. The house where I live now feels different from before that night. It's not just the security system or the reinforced doors. It's the knowledge that safety is relative, that danger can lurk in the most unexpected places. Yet I've also learned to appreciate the simple act of waking up each morning, of having another chance to create memories and forge connections. life becomes more precious when you face the possibility of losing it. If there's one thing I've taken away from this experience, it's the importance of paying attention to the world around us, not just to obvious threats or immediate dangers, but to the subtle signs that something might be wrong. Animals like Max possess an innate ability to sense things we often miss, and perhaps we should learn to trust those instincts more readily in ourselves too. As I sit here writing this account, listening to the rain patter against my window, I can't help but wonder about the person who tried to break into my home that night. Who were they? What drove them to target strangers in their own houses? Did they continue their pattern elsewhere? Or did my experience somehow alter their plans? These questions may never be answered, but they remain an integral part of my story. The night Max saved me from a killer I never saw taught me many things about fear, courage, and the bonds we form with our animal companions. It showed me that sometimes our greatest heroes come in unexpected forms, whether it's a loyal dog sensing danger or a human choosing to fight back against their fears. And perhaps most importantly, it reminded me that even in our darkest moments, there is always hope for survival and redemption. Now, when I look out at my quiet neighborhood on rainy nights, I do so with a mixture of vigilance and peace. The memories of that terrifying encounter will always be with me, but so too will the knowledge that I survived, thanks to the quick thinking of my faithful protector. And somewhere in the vast network of stars above, I like to think Max is still watching over me, ready to sound the alarm if danger ever approaches again.